the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always. Now, think about healing and nourishment, listeners. What are you thinking? Well, I'm thinking my mind is usually it's drifting toward what I can see and touch, like fruits, herbs, and supplements. But what if one of the most profound sources of health has been quietly working beneath the ocean's surface all along? That's interesting, right? Listeners, phytoplankton, the microscopic life forms that sustain nearly all life in the sea and give us most of the oxygen we breathe, may also hold the keys to cellular regeneration, resilience, and vitality for both humans and animals. Now, listeners, today we are joined by David Hunter, whose journey very interestingly began with witnessing phytoplankton transform a person's health when nothing else worked. And that moment shifted his path and led him into a lifetime of research, advocacy, and sustainable cultivation of these tiny powerhouses. So, together we'll be exploring how something so small can carry such a big promise for the future of nutrition and well being, and maybe even challenge what we think we know about healing from the inside out. So, David, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really honored to have you here with us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm happy to be here as well. It's great to be able to tell people about phytoplankton for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is something really, really interesting. I haven't have the had the chance to come across anything related to nourishment and healing when it comes to phytoplankton. So
Mm.
before we understand the entire concept here, David, let's talk about the or let's get back to that first moment, when you saw phytoplankton change someone's health. I mean, what
Yeah.
was it about that experience that made you realize this wasn't just another supplement fad or
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I and even to give some context is that when I was given this, I guess, this gift of being part of this, I was not looking for it. It's something that kind of just came on to me, and I didn't really, I was not really into the nutrition business or the health business or anything. I came from bottled water,
Oh,
and I got contracted at a sea farm where a gentleman was cultivating marine phytoplankton for shellfish food. And the unique selling proposition of this phytoplankton shellfish food is the shellfish were 2.5 times bigger than shellfish that were on traditional commercial feed, and these shellfish were destined for restaurants. And so the whole premise originally was to sell it for other people who grew shellfish for restaurants. And the gentleman that I was working with was diagnosed with mesothelioma, and he was expected to die within about 9 months. And my kind of job was to do some sales and marketing systems for him, in the event of his passing, so then he would have these systems in place, and, for his wife and his daughter to carry on. And kind of as a joke, while he was feeding the shellfish, he started to eat it himself. And, it was kind of this joke that, like, "Why are you eating this fish food? This is ridiculous." And he's like, "Well, I got nothing to lose. Like, I like dulse, and it kinda tastes like dulse." And, couple weeks later, after he was kind of having a habit of doing this, he came up to me and he said that, "Hey, I've got something to tell you, that, my blood sugar is normal for the first time since I don't know when, and I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm not even taking a needle right now. I'm waking up and my blood sugar is normal." And we were just kind of joking around and saying that, well, who would have thought cancer medication would have been, good for diabetes? That was kind of, we never even thought for a second it was the phytoplankton. And, he went into shortly thereafter, he went into the hospital, in Victoria, British Columbia, to
okay.
go get what's called a talc treatment, which is basically, the cancer response in the lungs, because it's a lung-based cancer. was water building up in the lungs and the person can drown. And so they do this thing called a talking treatment, to stop that from happening. And when they went in to go do the operation, they found a cotton white substance along the pleural lining of his lungs, and they never ended up doing the operation, but they sent him home and they did a whole bunch of tests on him trying to figure out, like, what was going on inside his lungs. And they called back a few days later, and there was absolutely 0 cancer in his body, and they were completely confused because mesothelioma is usually a death sentence. It's from, exposure of asbestos. Now, so that's like, okay, like, and he said, "Well, I think it's the phytoplankton because since I've been eating it, I've been feeling so good." And I don't know how this happened, and I guess maybe it was divine intervention, but his recovery made the newspaper. It made the front page of the newspaper, actually, not just the newspaper. It was like literally on the front page. And when it hit the newspaper, hundreds of people were calling and showing up to the sea farm to pick up some of this phytoplankton, desperate for anything, um, to help them, right? And my job was to pick up the phone, to talk to the people and arrange for them to come into the sea farm, and our mandate was to give away the phytoplankton for free. And so we just did, it was just like, "Oh, wow, Tom's recovery made the newspaper, here comes all these people," and these people were showing up to the sea farm with, just stories of desperation, um, tears, stories of, just long time sickness and debilitating diseases or just things that mobility issues, kind of thing, and, most of the people were 50 plus. Keep in mind at the time, I'm 52 here in a couple of days, but at the time I was 32 years old, and I'm sitting there witnessing all these people, and my mom was a nurse, so, like, I kinda had a little bit of a hospital background of and I used to go visit her and stuff like this in the hospital when she was working, but, like, all these people, like, it was just, the stories were very, they touched my spirit for sure, and, we gave them the phytoplankton and then see you later. Well, um, a month later,
Mhm.
these people started to come back, and they had a different tone in their voice, and I'm talking most of them, and they had hope and lights in their eyes and telling me about these miraculous stories of healing that, would be deemed impossible, like, just from, not really knowing too much and just, listening to what you hear about health or whatever and the mainstream kind of, world I was kinda plugged into. But it was for me, it was impossible. Like, like people just don't recover from Crohn's and colitis in 30 days. As an example, joint issues and arthritis and dandruff and psoriasis and erectile dysfunction and just all these crazy like stories of just miraculous healing. And I'll even layer on to this is that I started to take the phytoplankton and I had an absolute life-changing experience in a short period of time. Um, where, my energy levels were just through the roof. I had, like, this mental clarity that I couldn't even imagine, like, my brain was just working, like, on all 8 cylinders, and, I had a candida rash between my legs for years, and it just disappeared within a few days, and the big thing that happened to me was, that used to have migraine headaches all the time, and then all of a sudden, I'm realizing I'm not getting the migraine headaches. And I also had a nasal drip, and that stopped as well. It was just like I just had this complete instant transformation, so when these people were coming back and telling me these stories, I actually had a little bit of a barometer to kind of gauge by because I was feeling really good too, never mind what I saw, you know, with my boss and all these people, and so I was just really confused, and so there but one doctor showed up that where the light switch came on, so, like, my light bulb moment was a gentleman, a doctor in Qualicum Beach, British Columbia, came into the sea farm, and he was kind of a holistic doctor, and I was like, "Doctor Rowe, like, why is this going on? Like, what is happening here?" Because he was, like, super excited, he was so excited, and he goes, "You know what I think is going on?" He goes, "I think that Tom just accidentally discovered the holy grail of nutrition." And he goes, "It just makes so much sense, and it's just so ironic it was overlooked." He goes, "Phytoplankton is the first food on the planet. It is literally pure nutrition. It, like, it nourishes the entire oceanic ecosystem, but also these are mammals and nutrition is universal, and he thinks what is going on is because the phytoplankton is so small, kind of like what you said in the beginning that, it's 1.2 microns is the average size of it, so it's microscopic. He said that people are taking the phytoplankton and it might be the perfect food for the mitochondria, which is the engine of the cell. Because sometimes, the nutrients, they say sometimes it's not about the nutrition that you ingest, it's about what you absorb. And he said he thinks that this pure nutrition from the sea is going directly into the cell, basically reigniting the mitochondria, like all the mitochondria in every cell, and then all of a sudden the body just comes to life and the immune system wakes up and communicates with each other. You're now nourished. You have all the working tools to operate properly. And he said that, a lot of these health issues that he believes anyway at the time were just, simple malnourishment from diet. A lot of them are diet related. And he said phytoplankton is like basically the perfect way to eat perfectly, um, with the first nutrient. And so, like, for me, a guy who didn't really even know too much about phytoplankton at the time, it's like, when you kind of put like two and two together and you go, yeah, like this is pure nutrition. This is the first food, what God chose to be the beginning of life, food and nutrition in the ocean, which is also, of course, the ocean surrounds the most of the planet.
Yeah.
Whales and everything are living off of this, and then the birds of the prey, the birds of prey that eat the fish, well, those fish are being nourished from the phytoplankton as well, right? So it ties all in, and I'm like, and it just blew my mind, and I'm like, "You know what? This needs to get to the people," and that was, that was in late 2005, and, I've been dedicated to marine phytoplankton. I just had my 20-year anniversary on July 5th of this year, of that time period, of that happening, and, happy to say that, um, we've given phytoplankton to now hundreds of thousands of people, and we enjoy very much hearing, these stories, history repeating itself, and I've now been part of hundreds of thousands of people telling me that these, miraculous stories, and here we are just trying to get the word out that this is existing.
I have so many questions, David. So many. Oh goodness, such okay. Short time. I'm really really regretting. But to begin with, yes, I just for listeners, I just googled mesothelioma and phytoplankton. And definitely, there are articles. I think the most surprising thing is, um, maybe I'm not much. Devoting my time to watch mainstream media, but it's not discussed globally. Not so sure, David, but for the first time I'm listening this. Why haven't have been there have there been any researches done around this, in the conventional or the mainstream medicine? Because if in case this is curing cancer, if in case this is um, you know, going to the deepest levels, to the mitochondria,
Yeah.
and helping in increasing vitality. And, we are talking about cancer, we are talking about pets as well, we are talking about psoriasis, we are talking about, different health conditions. Why
Yeah.
isn't there any mainstream coverage on? I mean, I couldn't see. The listeners may not agree with me completely, but yeah, it's a kind of a personal question, David. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, like, it's, so when after this had happened, okay,
Mhm.
I dedicated because, so I'll even back up again. So the one of the driving forces of this fire that I had inside me to help people was my mom passed away from cancer when I was 20 years old. In 1993, she had a brain tumor and she passed away. And anybody who's lost anybody from cancer, and especially like a loved one like your mother, that leaves a lot of scars. Right? And, a lot of people too, like, if they're affected by cancer, they donate, they run for the cure, like, they do all these things for cancer, right? Well, we did some tests, like, so basically I did a lot of tests, and we got some cancer cells, from a cancer institute, and we put the phytoplankton in the cancer cells. And we used colon cancer and we used breast cancer cells. And, keep in mind, I was self-financing this too. And, the cells died in the Petri dish within 72 hours, and the lady from the Atlantic Cancer Institute who did it said that in 25 years of her doing research, she had never seen a natural organic compound kill cancer cells in a Petri dish. Normally, if you put bleach in there or something like that, she said it would die, of course, but she's never done a natural ingredient that had 100% cell death within 72 hours. So this was backing up my anecdotes, right? Because at the time they were just anecdotes, right? And so we needed some additional funding to find what's called fractionation to find the compounds within the phytoplankton that were doing this. And so I was trying to raise some more money and get people behind it, but I was meeting a lot of resistance. And just a lot of people who were in the cancer institutes and all this stuff were basically like looking at me like I was trying to sell them something. And I even told them, I said, look, I'll give this to you for free if this is going to help people. Now, this might shock a lot of people or it might not shock a lot, but this is what happened to me. I went I went to 2 things. I went to this place called the Terry Fox Foundation, and Terry Fox is really well known in Canada as a guy with 1 leg. He ran across the country. He died when he kinda got about to the halfway point, and they have all these runs that go, all over Canada to raise money. And, I showed them the cancer things that I like my anecdotes from the people that wrote, like, their anecdotes, and I sent these cell line tests that were done in a reputable university, okay? They wrote me back and said that, "Thank you for my report," but they're not gonna even look at it because they don't even look at natural they don't even consider natural, um, remedies in their research. And I'm like and I was really pissed off, to be honest, because I sent this report to, like, a rent place in Vancouver. And I'm like going, how often do they get guys like me with like hundreds of anecdotes and cell line tests, right? Natural, right? And they just brushed it off, said that case closed, we're not dealing with it. And I went to my local politician who's part of the federal government here, and and we kind of went back and forth. And he was really trying to help me point me in the right direction. And I was just getting dead ends all the time and getting very frustrated. And so I just said, "Hey, can we just" so I met with him again and, I'm kinda getting frustrated, but I'm, trying to be cordial here with the system, and I asked him, I said, "Can we just play pretend for a second?" And he goes, "Okay." I said, "Let's just play pretend that you, like, believed with all of your heart, you knew that what I was telling you was true. The Prime Minister of Canada knew believed 100% what I said was true, and the Minister of Health in Canada also believed it, okay? Let's just play pretend that the 3 top people in the government of Canada, knew that this was unequivocally doing this, and it could totally solve a huge issue in Canadian healthcare, which is basically publicly funded. And I said, "Would this get an ascension as kind of like a novel compound to help people with disease?" And he laughed. He, like, literally laughed, and he said, "Dave," he goes, "that is impossible." And I said, "Why is it impossible?" And he goes, "'Cause what you're saying is that, we're gonna, like, put this thing into the food chain, and without any" like, he goes, "Normally, things have to be considered a drug, and people invest billions of dollars to get their novel compounds basically the medical system, and that if, like, this naturally occurring plant like, with very little even if we knew it was true, would have to go through all the processes to do it." And I said, "Well, how long is that gonna take?" And he said, "Oh, probably, like, 15 years." So I said, "Well, basically then, this system is not designed to help people. It's designed to protect the people who are already in the market because this would obviously be a huge disruptor and it would just change things, but it would solve a lot of suffering, right?" And he's like, "Well, that's just" yeah, and he was just being honest with me, which I really appreciated, but he said, "Dave," he goes, "that's how it works." And so I got really discouraged and I was kind of like, not only nauseated from this, but, like, I'm just happy he told me the truth, and I was really down in the dumps, and my banker buddy actually came to me, and I was just kind of venting on him, and he had said, "Dave," he goes, "Why don't you just sell it as a multivitamin?" instead of, instead of, like, trying to you're gonna die trying to save the world, and so that's what we did. We launched it as a multivitamin in Canada, and, we became very successful, and that's where we've sold hundreds of thousands of units in Canada, and now we're in the United States, and we're known as, we have some of the best reorder rates in the supplement industry, like, where people come back for it because they're getting profound experiences, so, anyway, that's I know that was a long answer, but that's what happened. That's the reason why, um, I have to go on podcasts like this, and just one we our just mission is one person at a time that hears this message, they give it a try, we have a money back guarantee, and we just, our mission is to, help people one at a time.
Definitely. And David, that's kind of not shocking, to be honest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think anybody probably, this I don't think anybody's falling off their chair going, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that that happened."
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way that's the way the system works.
exactly. Exactly. No, but good thing is that you found a way out in here to get this uh, to the people, um, and the intentions are very very noble, of course. And another good thing is that now it is reaching out globally to the people out there, and it's definitely a ripple effect, because if one person knows about this, then it's definitely going to get passed on to so many people. And it's not like a fad or a trend, but since there are anecdotes, there are proofs, not maybe medically or research. I mean, that could be subjected to, once again, how systemic things work in the conventional way. But definitely, thank you for sharing with all of us, David, on this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I said it's just so simple. It's just, if the root cause of the human suffering is a big part of it is malnourishment, say from the diet, especially North American diet more than anywhere,
Mm,
then it would just make sense that nutrition, which are the building blocks of life, would be the thing to reverse that. You reverse malnourishment with nutrition, and phytoplankton is nutrition. So, and just it's just ironic that it was overlooked. And kind of like you said in the beginning, here we have this whole nutritional health food industry as well, and phytoplankton, the foundational nutrient of the planet, was completely overlooked, probably most likely because it was invisible. You know?
mm,
And, we're hoping one day that it'll trend and all that, because the health food industry is very trendy, so, just not our time yet, right? It's all in the timing of the universe, and we just one person at a time, and it's kind of our motto, and we just think we'll let it, when it's time to manifest and be known, then that's the time. But if there's a listener here on your podcast that's like, "Hey, you know what?" Like, they go take a look at it or whatever, then, you know, and, they try it and get better, well, then, hey, mission accomplished, you
yes,
know?
exactly. Yeah, true. Another surprising thing, I mean, I was reading through one article, when you were sharing that, I was doing that simultaneously, and I was actually kind of very, very surprised. Like it was mentioned that it's applicable, it's useful even for dogs. And now, uh, I mean, how does phytoplankton benefit animals differently from humans? Because
Yeah.
all the building blocks are same, but the mechanisms in there are quite different, David. So how does it work for animals?
Well, I mean, dogs are mammals too, right?
Mhm.
And nutrition is universal. Like, vitamin C is the same for a human than it is a dog, or omegas, like, even if you buy dog food, right? Like, oh, with omega-3, or like with this vitamin or that vitamin, nutrition is universal, like whether you're a dog, a cat, or a human, or even a gopher, right? They need nutrition to survive. So, actually a very well-known vet in Canada here, who was taking the phytoplankton for herself, was like, "Hey, like, this is transferable." And so it was kind of the same thing. So we launched with a very well-known, veterinarian, a pet line, in Canada originally it started, and the same type of things that are happening with humans, it happens with pets, so it could even just be a thing like your dog or your cat is shedding like crazy. Well, or they're a senior dog and their hips are, fall down and they have trouble being mobile again or something, or, skin itching issues or digestive issues. People, the anecdotes are, like again, we're not talking 5 or 6 here, like this is pretty well known, and the dogs and cats are, and even horses are completely rebounding. And so the same thing is happening because again, it's, universal, like I said, and then a lot of people too, they go, "Well, you don't have the science to prove this," you know? That's kind of the thing I get, and I go, "Well, is there science on omega 3s? Yeah. Is there science on the B vitamins? Yeah. Selenium? Yeah. Potassium? Yeah." I can go on. Well, are they all good? Yeah. Well, this is all naturally occurring in the phytoplankton in its original source. So why would you think that this would be, so there's a lot of science on it because it's like it's not an ingredient that I discovered. It's a plant that was naturally occurring that was completely overlooked, and all the components within it are everybody knows about it, but it's all in one. So it just takes the guesswork out of it. It's basically Mother Nature's multivitamin.
Exactly.
It's what multivitamins are trying to be. They're just trying to be phytoplankton. So we're just bypassing.
Exactly.
We're just taking out the food coloring and the cartoon characters.
True. That's right.
Yeah, but the same thing is for pets. So anybody has a dog or a cat, that's struggling, we have a pet product as well, and it's, I, nothing. Definitely very heartwarming when a pet does a 180. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, David, now, to be honest, I mean, whenever we have seen cutting edge wellness discoveries, they often start out expensive and
Mhm.
out of reach. How do you ensure phytoplankton doesn't just become another elitist health trend?
Well, I mean, I would like it to be a health trend. That would be nice, because 'cause I've been basically in the beginning, like, I'm the main guy that has done phytoplankton. Pretty much any phytoplankton that's on the market originated from my efforts because I was the pioneer, and yeah, there's been some knockoffs, like, made in China or just inferior stuff, and, there's always gonna be a little bit of that. Um, so you can't really, I'm not the police force. But you know what I just think is that, if you plant corn, you get corn, and we just, we our whole business is about being growing very high quality, being the best, doing the highest level of food safety standards, the best people that we can get. We're not trying to cut corners. We've got it down to $3 a day. $90 is, the average US dollars for the product, and, that's where we're at now, and, if we could get it cheaper, like, we will. Um, but, I think it's just gonna be one of those things is, like, we believe that this is worth $3 a day, especially if somebody is, like, living with something that is lowering their quality of life. That's what a coffee costs pretty much now, right? So, and, food is just not getting any cheaper either, right? So, you know what? We're just, there's all it can do is we just do our best and we just grow the best, and, we're the pioneers, and, you know, and if, the foundation of it is built on efficacy and doing the right thing, and, again, so it's always going to be a knockoff, but I always believe too that cream rises to the top, and, um, there's certain things built into the universe to, where, if people wanna do something that's not for the right reasons, they'll get the results that their inputs, the outputs be parallel to their inputs. So that's kinda how I see it. I don't have to conquer the world here. What my mission is I'm 52, I've kinda been doing this for 20 years. I still got gas in the tank. Um, but, I think my mission, just being as the guy who is the pioneer, is I just want phytoplankton to become kind of mainstream knowledge, and
Mhm.
hopefully the good guys who grow really good are gonna win, and if other people get, it's almost like potentially it's an economy, it's not even a health supplement, because I think if people really realize what this is really doing, I do believe it's a disruptor. Like, once people kinda go, "Oh, my like, this is what phytoplankton is doing," like, it will definitely disrupt not just the medicine side, but it'll also disrupt the natural health side because they completely overlooked it as well. So things like multivitamins or green drinks and stuff like this, like, we kinda fit into that bucket a little bit, um, but we get the results, and I how I know about the results is that based on our reorder rates and lifetime customer values, because people vote with their wallet. And, we used to get audited by Deloitte, which is one of the top 5, like, accounting firms, and they had said that they had never seen, ever in the natural health industry, the lifetime customer value and repeat business that we have, and, people vote with their wallets, right? If the product isn't working for them, they ain't gonna pay $90 for that, I know that for sure.
Of course, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I'm just gonna take another 5 minutes because I really want this point to be addressed upon, because we are specifically talking about phytoplanktons. I mean, they're not just for human and pet health, they're also crucial for our planet's survival, David. And we are talking about this in the age where climate change, the effects are visible, they're tangible, and with rising ocean temperatures and acidification, scientists, they warn that phytoplankton populations could decline. We are definitely seeing some effects out there. I mean, major effects out there. So, do you think there's an irony here? Like, while we are trying to harvest phytoplankton for health, climate change itself might threaten their very existence.
Mhm. Yeah, well, the good news is that we're not harvesting the phytoplankton, we grow it from seed. So it'd be like planting a garden, so we're actually creating more phytoplankton than there was before. Um, Now, again too, like phytoplankton can also be used as a fertilizer for crops. I mean, this is a whole other thing that's getting done right now. A lot of people are studying that. And the other thing too is a lot of people are using I'm studying in the Netherlands and Portugal using phytoplankton for cows. Because if they add a little bit of phytoplankton into their diet, then it actually neutralizes the methane gas that comes out. And so the other thing that happens is so like, again too, like, if this thing takes off the way that we're hoping, people are going to be growing phytoplankton. And so it's something that can be grown. I mean, it's very specialized and it's expensive capital to get it going, but we can grow phytoplankton, so that's always good. And we always have a little bit left over that we pump back into the ocean after we're done. And also too is like phytoplankton, it's been here since the beginning. So, I just trust the creator to be honest that like so say for an example, if there's a forest fire, and this happened actually in Australia when the forest fires were happening in Australia. Well, the phytoplankton actually when the carbon from the fires and all that basically go into the atmosphere, the phytoplankton come to life. And they had this huge phytoplankton bloom around Australia, absorbing all the carbon that came in from the forest fires. So I believe that if, phytoplankton is the original source, um, it's obviously a survivor. Like there would have to be a catastrophic event for phytoplankton not to exist. Because if phytoplankton didn't exist, I don't think we'd have be worrying about too much because we wouldn't have an ocean, and also too, phytoplankton is the number one oxygen producer in the planet. And phytoplankton is considered the lungs of the planet. Because if you think about it, it's like, basically all this plant life floating on the surface of the ocean and the ocean surrounds us all, right? So so I you know what? I think, the phytoplankton, it just seems to have this mechanism. It's like going back to the forest fires. When you have something like that, carbon going into the atmosphere, it actually, activates it to grow, and it can multiply very, very quickly. So, phytoplankton will have a role, in climate change, of course, but then also too is that if this goes the way that we want to and we can use it for fertilizer for crops and for animal feed and for pets and for humans and all this stuff, they're like, there's gonna be more phytoplankton being grown. And so, let's just hope that that's the case because it could be a solution for a lot of different things, not just for the human health, so it's very versatile in its applications. And even, there's people that are investing billions of dollars of looking at phytoplankton as an energy source. So imagine if we created if they could create like a biodiesel from phytoplankton, like, and they were growing phytoplankton all over the place instead of pumping oil out of the ground. I mean, this is where it's kind of going. Like it's, very early stage, but and I don't focus on that part of it. But of course, because I'm part of all these algae associations, I know all the stuff that's going on. But there are a lot of efforts. It's a little ahead of its time. And and that's kind of the thing that sometimes is like, people are hearing about this for the first time and because it's not mainstream, right? So, it'll find its place when the time is right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe nature has got her own way of finding her own place.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful. And they would, of course, if our listeners, they would like to access uh, the resources that you're providing, what would be the best way?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, we can tell them to go to globalphytoplankton.com, which, of course, is, like, a super long domain, but, like so we have one domain that's pretty easy that they can go to, and so the domain is usagpa.com. So usagpa.com, and that means just the Global Phytoplankton Alliance is the GPA part of it, which is basically the alliance that we have with all the growers and all that stuff. So, yeah, usagpa.com. And, they can, a lot of resources there, the science documents that we've done so far, we pioneered all that, learn about the product and some videos and, and if people wanna try it, again, yes, it's $90 US, but we have a money back guarantee as well, so then, if they're hearing about it on the podcast and they try it, um, you know, they're we always back it up, so we kinda take the risk. So, yeah, so we just want people to get better. And we over the course of all the time since we started, we have a 0.81% return rate on a $90 product. So, just and plus we said some of the best reorder rates around. So, we can back it up. And I go to bed at night knowing that we're delivering a premium source of nutrition for people that can definitely improve their quality of life in a big way.
Of course, of course. I think this is a brilliant intersection of business and purpose, a bigger purpose, not only for the present, the current generation, but the future generations as well. And David, I'll make sure to have all the details in the show notes for our listeners. And I couldn't thank you enough because you are helping us see health not just as a fight against disease, but as a deeper relationship with nature's intelligence. So thank you so, so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the time to tell your listeners about this. One person at a time.
Exactly. Exactly. And to all the listeners out there, you know what I am walking away with today is a renewed respect, gratitude for the unseen forces that sustain life. The things we can't hold in our hands, yet that hold us in ways we barely understand. And phytoplankton remind us that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest wisdom in there. So, thank you to everyone for devoting their time to listen to this podcast. Maybe today's conversation is your invitation to look closer, breathe deeper, and remain curious about the hidden layers of healing that surround us. Until next time, stay mindful, stay open, and keep living with intention. Thank you.